a sec. Let me try to fix my. This is supposed to be coming through my headphones. Okay, input's good. Output's fine. Let's see. That might not even be necessary in a second, but we'll see.
All right.
Okay.
Just tell me if I'm low or something. Tell me if I'm low or anything, because.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Let me see. I'll be right back.
Okie dokie.
All right. Let's go and confirm anything sending out will on air will also stop this broadcast. No, I'll continue to broadcast. Never mind. So we'll just talk all kinds of regular here. Didn't want to stop that one, but it's fine. Not going to be doing anything super technical this time. Just get this set up so I can interact with the chat and we can get started with this thing. All right. Hi, everybody. Got a special show today. At long last, I have the opportunity to speak with one of my heroes from a distance. I got mad respect for this man. We got allegedly Dave in the house. Thanks for coming on, sir.
Well, I'm glad to actually almost meet you face to face for the first time.
Yeah, because we're going to be meeting at the Flat Earth Conference in a little bit.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's going to be good. But yeah, seriously, you were one of the first people that I saw that looked like myself talking about Flat Earth in this whole thing, and partial props to you on the spirit level experiment, because I remember on that interview that you did. Why am I forgetting the name? I've heard this so many times. Where was the place?
Macedonia.
I was wanting to say Palestine for some reason or another. The interview you did in Macedonia, you were talking about how a plane should have to dip the nose down. I was like, he's right. A plane should have to dip the nose down. So, I had you in mind doing the spirit level experiment. So,
yeah, I went a little further with that actually, because somebody was trying to tell me that left to its own resources, a plane is actually going to naturally follow the curve of the Earth. That's what they were trying to tell me.
Yeah, but, the idea of curved air.
Yeah. But it's the control surfaces of a plane that determine its height. It's not anything to do with the Earth or the ground or gravity or anything. It's where those control surfaces are.
All right,
and they're after us. Scout.
Marat here. Hold up.
We're black dudes. We've got to run.
Pretty much. All right. We'll get on that later. But yeah. That whole situation. That's something I've had to talk to people about. So okay, so you got a lot going on right now. I know you're a busy man. Thanks for taking your time out to hang out with me. So brief introduction. Your Flat Earth story. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Yeah, this was the summer of 2014. I was actually in Turkey at the time, and how you doing? I was researching something else. I can't remember what it was now. Researching something else, all completely unrelated, and I think it was one of the videos that was in the corner. How they got the suggested ones in the corner, and I either clicked on it or it started. I can't remember. I clicked on it. I think I did. And it was talking about some, scientific experiments. Now, I've always been a sucker for scientific experiments. I've kind of followed them and everything. Right. And this guy is an older guy, was talking about these experiments like Sagnac and I think it was Michael Morley. But then he started talking about the Bedford Levels experiment, and it looks like you're frozen, but I'm hoping we haven't frozen here. So talking about the Bedford Levels experiment, and in it, he mentioned the 8 inches per mile squared, calculation, and I thought, hang on a second, I've seen things way further than than I'm supposed to be able to see. So I went out and started looking for things, and the first thing I looked at was there was a lighthouse 8 miles out from where I was actually standing. And I looked it up on Google Maps. It's literally 8 miles away, and I kind of put my head really close to the water, and I could see the bottom of this lighthouse, right where the water meets the rocks, and it should have been something like 32 feet or a bit more than that below the horizon. I was like, well, I can't find any curvature, so it was like that started me off on a curvature hunt. And the rest, as you might know, as soon as you get the bug for this, it's like every waking moment, you're trying to absorb all this stuff, and you end up becoming an expert in all sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that's what started me all off. And I think I told my son when I came back from Turkey, I sat him down and said, "You're not going to believe this." And, I told him, and I guess he listened to me, went away, and it wasn't, I think it was quite a while afterwards, he came back to me and said, yeah, I think you're right. So yeah, most of my family are kind of on board with this as well.
No, that's good. Yeah, same story with mine. I went back and talked to my family. After a while, I got started making these short videos just to kind of sneak these side conversations in with my pops or my sister. Things like that. So yeah, everybody's pretty much, I don't get a lot of negative feedback, if you know what I mean. I mean, not so much that everybody's out like, hey, just so you know, the earth is flat. They're not driving around with stuff on the side of their van or anything, but they accept the idea. So that's cool.
Well, people must like you more than they like me, because I get a lot of negative feedback.
Oh man. Oh, I get the negative feedback. You probably heard about there was one time I was just driving down the freeway. I was coming from Bellevue going to Seattle. I'm literally driving over a body of water. I mean, I'm just looking on each side, looking at the flat horizon, and this elderly couple is right next to me, and I look off to the left and I see this old lady like I'm like, what? So I got flipped off by somebody's grandma, dude. So I get mixed responses. It's fun times.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you've become somewhat of a health guru. In the past few years, from what I've seen, I was like binge watching your videos yesterday, trying to get some notes down, things to talk to you about. So, as far as health goes, what do you deem to be the most important thing to relay about the health of the mind, and then about the health of the body?
Well, they're both interlinked, really. The approach. Well, let me step back. I was actually very sick myself. Okay, 8 years ago. I was massively overweight. I was, very asthmatic, and I had a whole list of problems I was dealing with. And I tried everything from the medical establishment. Nothing worked. And I started to research the medical establishment after reading a book called The World Without Cancer, which broke down cancer completely. So I researched the medical establishment, realized that it wasn't designed to help us.
Right.
It's deliberately there to keep us sick. So I started looking at alternatives and came across urine therapy. Okay. And I started urine therapy, and literally everything that was wrong with me just stopped. And my weight disappeared after I started urine fast. Everything that was wrong with me just stopped, and I became, well, I guess I went back to as I was when I was in my 20s. Okay. And so I started looking or trying to figure out or researching why it was that it was working. How's it doing this?
Right.
and basically worked out very, very simply that the best thing you can do for your body is get out of its way, let it do its job. Yeah, everything that goes wrong with us is when we trust somebody called a doctor who somehow thinks he knows more about your body than you do,
Mm-hmm.
and you allow him to poison you or burn you or cut you or all sorts of things that the body does not want. You know,
Right.
so I basically worked out, and I'm going to do a little plug here.
Okay.
My book. Yeah, I just put everything I knew I figured out in my book, The Human Body Owner's Workshop Manual.
There it is.
Okay, plug over. Basically, it comes down to four things. Right. Number one is to stop poisoning yourself. Okay, is that coffee you're drinking there?
No. This is actually distilled water out of my flat
Okay,
Earth
no,
cup.
all right, no, good boy. Yeah. Yeah, so stop poisoning yourself is number one. So I tell people to eat fruit because the fruit is the least damaging thing you can put in your body.
Okay.
Yeah, it's mostly water, and the physical matter is really easy for the body to get rid of. Okay,
Right.
and most of it is about energy allocation.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is to get rid of the poison that's already in you. So with that is distilled water, because that's a detox agent, and urine therapy. Between those two, literally, it'll pull everything out of you. Okay. Number three is to give your body the energy it needs to do the repair work, and that is fasting. The idea behind that is when you eat food, it takes about 80% of your body's energy to get rid of that food. It's not doing any kind of digesting. It's literally breaking it down and trying to get rid of it as soon as possible. Right. But it takes up a lot of your energy. And when you fast, basically, the energy that you would use to get rid of that food, well, now it's available and your body uses it to do some spring cleaning and maintenance work. So that's number three. Number four, final one, is to change the way you think, because all disease starts up here. Yeah. So usually a thought pattern starts a cascade of chemicals that we feel as an emotion. Mm-hmm. And emotions are really there for emergency purposes. So imagine if you're crossing a road and you drop something and you go to pick it up, and in the corner of your eye you think you see a car coming. Right. Even if you don't see a car coming, but you think you see a car coming, all of a sudden you get a rush of adrenaline. You'll get your heart start beating faster. You'll get all your blood will be drawn out of your core into your limbs, so you can run or fight the car if you need to. Yeah, all sorts of things will happen, and we experience that as fear. Yeah, but it's only an emergency response, because one of the things it does is shut down your higher brain functions so that you can react rather than think. It shuts down your immune system, which uses up a lot of power, energy, and it does lots of other sort of unhealthy things. But it's an emergency situation, got to get you out of trouble.
Right.
But the problem is, we in this society live under chronic states of emotion. Yeah. Normally something traumatizes us in childhood, and we hang on to that. And, we're under kind of low levels of this stress, of these emotions, and eventually they'll trigger diseases associated with those emotions. So if you're angry, it'll attack your liver. If you're full of grief, it's going to attack your lungs, and so on and so on and so on. So this last step is actually a process of reprogramming your thought patterns, so they don't actually trigger these these preconditions for whatever disease it is. If you don't do that, then it doesn't matter how much you heal your body, eventually it's going to re-trigger it.
Okay. Right, because your mind's going to go back into the same thought pattern and pretty much trigger the same enzymes in the brain to cause these diseases to come back to you.
Exactly. Now, one of the things I get people to visualize in this thing, it's the thing that makes you really is a whole set of memories that you've decided to hang on to. Yeah, a whole string of memories that go way back into your past. And, these are isolated memories you've decided to hang on to and you have an opinion about. Yeah. So every decision you end up making, what happens is you go through that whole list of memories and decide what Daryl's going to do. Yeah.
Okay.
That's literally what happens. But if you didn't have those memories, or you change them, well, then you'll have a different result when you decide to make a decision. And if you don't do that, if you have these same memories and you don't do anything about them, you end up going round and round in circles, doing the same things in your life, drawing in the same experiences, the same type of people, the same type of experiences. Yeah.
Right.
I get people to I tend to get people to do some homework when I'm working with their with their minds. Okay, I get them to do a little homework. I get them to watch a film called Regarding Henry. Have you seen it? It's an old Harrison Ford film.
No, I haven't. Okay, let me write that down.
All right. Yeah, it's called Regarding Henry. I think it's from the 80s. Okay. The story is that Harrison Ford is some scumbag lawyer, and one of the first scenes is him on the phone, and he's complaining about a table that was delivered to his house. And he's saying, he's really going off on this person, saying, yeah, it's an ugly table. It looks like a turtle. It's a disgusting thing. Why would you send this to my house? It's a wrong table. Get it out of my house or I'm going to sue you. And he really goes off on this guy. So the next scene, he gets shot in the head and he loses his memory. Okay. And the rest of the film is his family and friends trying to remind him who you used to be. Okay. So after a long stay in hospital, he still hasn't got his memory, goes home. First thing he does is he walks through the door. Oh, nice table.
Wow. Okay.
Right. That's because he didn't have all those experiences that led him to believe that table was ugly. Instead, without them, he was free to make his own decision. Okay.
Okay.
So literally, you are free. Once you become aware of your list of memories, you are free to now make decisions, new decisions that will take you on a different path, because you can reprogram one of these memories. There's probably a seminal memory there that is really affecting you, affecting your decision making, and you can change that. You can let go of it or have a different opinion about that memory, and then take a different path.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
The idea. So basically, you can, in your mind, come to a quiet place, maybe in meditation or prayer. You can just kind of go back through these old mental processes, these old thoughts that you used to have about certain concepts, individuals, events, situations, and adjust the way that you were viewing that situation, and then that allows you to determine a different outcome and how you're going to respond to it.
Kind of. I've got an example here. Okay. Me and my brother are just about a year apart. Okay, and when we were growing up, my mother would make us clothes, and she made us a pair of jeans each. Okay, really good pair of jeans, except she was a bit absent-minded and she forgot she only tacked in the zip. Right, so I took my jeans on a trip to France, and halfway over on the ferry, my zip burst open. And it really burst open. Yeah. And everyone went all start laughing at me and pointing and everything. So I stood there and I went, "Come on, girls, I'm open." And we all had a bit of a laugh. Somebody found a safety pin and it was all over. Okay.
Right.
My brother took his genes on a trip to Wales with the school. Same thing happened to him. And he counts that as one of the most embarrassing moments of his life.
Ah.
So he has that memory and that opinion of that memory in his set of memories now. I've got that same memory, but a different opinion about it. So if me and him approach a situation where there's a possibility of being embarrassed, he's going to veer off. He's not going towards it. I'll go towards it. Because I'm going to think, oh, you know, it's quite funny. That was really, you know,
Right.
I can handle that. Yeah. He'll go off and do, you know, go around in his circle. I'll go towards the slightly embarrassing thing. Okay. That's what, can you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. That was good. Yeah. That was good. And I spoke about that the other day. I had been dealing with some things, some stuff kind of went sideways in my life, and I just kind of did a quick pep talk with myself / with the audience, talking about how, you know, in life situations are going to happen, and it's, you know, 10% of what happens to you, and then 90% of it is the attitude that you adopt in dealing with these situations. So I can dig it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't mind talking about stuff from my life, because that usually helps people to see you see the situation in real terms.
Right.
Yeah. So I had an event happen to me when I was 14, and it changed my life. I actually tried to kill myself, and you know, I literally took a whole bunch of pills and some vodka and stuff, and started going for a walk. And last thing I remember is falling into a hedge, and then waking up in hospital.
Okay, I hadn't heard that story, but go on.
I woke up in hospital, and my first thought, the first thing that went through my head was, that was stupid, Dave. You haven't seen Empire Strikes Back yet. But that's the thing. That was telling me that there was so much I hadn't seen, I hadn't done, and it's stupid to throw, you know, this life away for something that you know, this childish idea I had in my head that caused me to try and kill myself. Yeah. And this is the thing about this, you know, this memory that let's say this traumatic memory that is affecting you and causing you to make the same mistakes over and over again. It's usually a child that's doing this. Yeah, it's a program that's set up by a child. Say you were 8 years old and you had some traumatic experience. Yeah. So the program that is affecting your life, that's you know, pushing you around, really, is literally an 8-year-old. Now, you if an and you can hear that 8-year-old talking in your head. Yeah, it's telling you stuff like, no, this is going to be terrible. No, you can't do this. You're going to mess it up. All this sort of thing. Yeah, all this negative stuff.
Right.
But if you became aware of what this 8-year-old was talking about, what the feeling it had, and what this trauma was, well, you as an adult know what to say to an 8-year-old that's standing in front of you saying the same things about that trauma. Yeah, usually it's a kind of silly, childish view of maybe a serious situation.
Yeah.
Okay? But you know what to say to that child. So you say, you reprogram that child. You tell that child, look, it wasn't your fault. Yeah, blah blah blah. You know what to say to that child. And essentially, and this is a weird way of looking at this. Yeah. Imagine, you know, those times in your life when you're trying to make a decision, or something says to you, no, go left.
Right.
You go left, and everything works out great. Yeah. Or you know that little voice that goes, you know, why don't you do this? And you do it, and everything. Yeah.
Yes.
So, what if? Sorry.
And I always wonder why that little voice doesn't talk louder, because I mean, it's always right, whenever you look back, you're like, man, I knew I shouldn't have done that, or I knew I should have done that, or I knew I shouldn't have went there. Something told me that wasn't going to work out. And do you have any idea, any clue that you can share with us as to how we can make that voice a little bit louder within ourselves?
Well, you don't have to make it louder, okay? If you were to do this process of, in your mind, talking to that child. Okay, first of all, you listen to yourself talk.
Okay.
Yeah, listen to that voice in your head. Yeah, when it's all negative about you, which is most of the time,
right?
Listen to it. Listen to what it's trying to tell you, and it should occur to you that that what the trauma was that's affecting you, what the trauma is that's causing this voice. Yeah.
Right.
So when you do this process of talking to that child, well, if you know, as I know, that there is no such thing as time. Yeah, time doesn't really exist.
Right.
So when you talk to that child, what if you are that voice that talks to that little child, changes its mind, and now your present is changed? Follow that?
Yeah. Man,
I think that's what's going on.
I'm glad I got a good night's sleep, man. You can run me in circles over here. All right.
Can you see what I'm saying? If you do this process, well, then you're going to reframe your past, and that's going to affect your present. So the more you do it, the more you'll have this voice in your memory.
Yeah.
That's been right and changed your life. Yeah. So just keep doing that, and you will have this voice telling you a lot.
Right. Oh man. So it's actually and I'd heard a lot of like people doing these talks, and they're like, it's your inner voice is like your higher self speaking to you from another dimension or something like that. I'm like, it sounds good, but it kind of makes sense at the same time. But here, I'll share one of my situations. Because while you were talking about your childhood experience and how these certain situations can shape, how you see things now, I'll go ahead and go personal, full disclosure on some things that happened in my life. See, my parents got divorced when I was 13, I believe. So the separation of course, happened before that. So there was a point where we were living in the house, both parents, and my dad moved out, got his own place. And my mom wasn't working. So there was about a month or so where we were financially strapped. So what happened, my brother and I, we grabbed our fishing poles, and we would have to walk 2 miles to the fishing hole, and we would go fishing, and we would be out there for hours catching fish so we could bring them back to the house so we could eat. And going through that situation where we were like so strapped, just kind of busted, didn't know where the next meal was going to come from, we had to go provide that. So that experience instilled in me kind of a sense of it's better to be a minimalist for the most part. And that's kind of this whole situation that I've found myself in. Like, I can't stand owing people money. I don't like debt. I'd rather save than spend. Living out of a van, situations like that. It just kind of shaped where I am now. And I thought about that. That might be, it's definitely one of the programs mentally that has led me to where I am now, actually. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, you know what? For funny one thing, same thing happened to me. My mum and dad divorced at 13 when I was 13. So same thing. But if you wanted to reframe that, because obviously, I mean, that's had a positive effect on your life, right? Because, being minimal is I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right.
But it was driven from fear. Okay. But you can reframe that idea, because if you had that child standing in front of you and it was saying, God, we had to go and provide, we had to fish all day and provide. Well, think about it. You did it.
Yeah, that
You did it.
think of it. I'm like, that was some kind of hardcore stuff, man. Like,
Right, but the
seriously.
point is, you did it. You provided for the family. You provided the food for the family. That's not a bad thing. That's a great thing,
Right.
right? But your memory there, the idea that you've attached to it, it's a bad situation, right? The reframing of it is you overcame a bad situation.
Yeah.
In the most positive way that can happen. You and your brother actually took the initiative, went out and provided. At your age, that's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Cool. All right. Let me see. What's next on the agenda? What can you tell us about the currency system and how that's
Ooh, that's a big topic.
all right. Let's all right.
No,
Give me what you got.
It's all fake. It's the whole monetary system. First of all, it was a technology given to us given to certain people by the fallen angels. If you look in the book of Enoch, it tells that the precious stones and working of gold and precious metals was given to people. So it's a technology, and just like any technology, it's it's known by some, and those who know how to use it have power over those who don't know how it works.
Okay.
And literally, it's a confidence trick. Yeah, it's like a big game of Monopoly, or not Monopoly, more like musical chairs. Yeah.
Right.
What you don't realize is that the whole system of this monetary scam is that it's all the time taking chairs away.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, the bank ends up with all the chairs, and we're all fighting over the one or two chairs that are left. That's literally what because what happens is the bank lends money into existence, always lends money into existence, doesn't come into existence until somebody borrows some money from them. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when they borrow, say they borrow £100, well, with that £100 there comes some interest, so if you borrow £100, they want 150 back. Okay. Yeah. But they only created the £100. So if you pay £100 back, you've got to find £50 that was never created. So you take that from the pot of money that's already there. So that means if you manage to pay that off, then somebody else is going to lose out. Somebody is going to be unable to pay back their, the money they've borrowed. So a chair gets taken away.
Right.
You see how it works? So the more money that gets loaned into existence, the more debt there is, right? And the more, if you pay off your debt, more people end up dropping off. They get bankrupt. Until, and this is where we are pretty much now, until the bank owns everything, including the physical things that we've loaned money to borrow, to pay for. Yeah. Right. So the bank owns pretty much everything and we own nothing. And it's always been aimed at that. Because we think money comes from banks. It doesn't come from banks, right? If you go to a bank and you want a loan, okay? So the bank will give you a loan agreement and say, sign here, and you sign it. It says say £100 or $100 right there, and it says a date when you're going to have to pay it back and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. You sign it, you give it to them, they move money from somewhere and into your account. Right. You use it, and now you've got to pay it back with interest. Okay, that's the way we think it works. Yeah. But what actually happens is that loan agreement that you've just signed. Mm-hmm. Well, that's actually a promissory note. right? It's you saying, I promise to pay the bearer on this date, this amount of money, yeah, which is usually 3 times the amount with interest or whatever.
Right.
Right. So it now becomes actual money, just like you know, the dollars in your pocket. Yeah. Somewhere it says, I promise to pay the bearer. It's got a date and somebody's signature. It's the same thing.
Right.
So what the bank does is it takes that promissory note and it cashes it, and it gives you credit. It gives you credit within their banking system. It doesn't move money. It just types in digits into your account. And if somebody wants to, if you want to pay somebody, well, you're going to pay them into the banking system. So they just transfer those credits over. So nothing, they haven't given you anything, right? And now you're gonna spend the next 3 years or whatever working your ass off, yeah, doing actual physical work, using your energy to literally pay them back when they gave you nothing.
So criminal, man. That's criminal.
And there's one final slap in the face. Yeah.
Right.
Your signature is the security for that transaction. Okay. Your signature is the valuable part. It's your promise that you're going to work. Yeah. Okay. So with that security, well, let's change that signature to something else. If you wanted to borrow money off of me, yeah, you want to borrow $100 off me, right, and I took a gold watch off you as security. When you pay me back the $100, what do you expect to happen after that?
I'd like to think I get my gold watch back. No?
Right. What if I said, no, you can't have it, I've already sold it?
Wait.
Right. Yes. So this is what happens when you get a loan. What the bank does is it sells that promissory note, because now it's worth 3 times the amount that's on the note because of the interest. So if the loan was $100, the interest on it would make it up to $300. Yeah. Now that note is worth $300 with a face value of $100. Yeah. So it could sell that note for $200.
That's ridiculous.
And so see how it works? It's a big scam, and we've all fallen for it. And you know, because when nobody's taught it at school, are they? You know, they deliberately don't teach us how money works, which is, I guess, in this society, the most important thing you can ever need to know, really.
Yeah, and I remember getting out of high school and like going straight into the Army, and I had no clue about finances, credit cards, debt, none of that stuff. And you know, I get a statement, they starting to count for me with USAA. I'm like, wait, I got how much money? All right, cool. You know, I get a credit card automatically, and then I go buy some stuff with the card, and I'm like, what's this interest stuff? What do you mean 14.98 interest? What? So then, you know, you end up paying back so much more than you borrowed in the first place. And that's another part of why I hated the idea of debt, because you're always going to pay back more than you borrowed. So, I mean, I just kind of adopted an idea that, you know, if I can't pay for it right straight out with cash or whatever, so I don't need it, you know? So, well, I'm still interested with this.
I was going to say the very first thing I did when I got into the free man movement is I attacked my credit card. Basically, I used a system in the States because I was actually living there at the time. Essentially, I wrote to my credit card company. I think I owed them $9,000. So I wrote to the credit card company one letter, basically laying out what I understood about the monetary system, and saying, you know, there's a billing error. The billing error was that they didn't include the credit that every time I use my card, yeah, every time I use my card, and you remember when you used to use the card and you have to sign a bit of paper, you know, you like if you went to a restaurant, you sign a bit of paper, and yeah, well, that little signature on that piece of paper was the promissory note. Okay. So
Okay.
when you sign that, you created money. So if you went to a restaurant and the meal was $100, yeah, when you sign that piece of paper, you've just created $100. The restaurant sends that piece of paper to the bank. The bank credits the restaurant, and now charges you $150 or $200 for that. Yeah.
Man.
Okay. So literally, when they give you your statement, they did not add the credit part of the equation. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it would have zeroed itself out all the way down. Yeah. Every time you use that credit card, you create the credit. There you go, and then you debit it to pay for the restaurant.
Right.
Zero. So every time you use that credit card, it's zeroed out automatically. But they don't put that bit in. They just put the debit part in, and now you think, oh, I'm gonna have to pay this. But as soon as I sent this letter, now bearing in mind that I was completely up to date with paying this. Okay, I was paying my credit card regularly and everything, completely up to date. I just sent this letter in. The next thing that happened was I got it was sent out to collections. It was a collections agency saying you owe $9,000. I was like, oh, all right. Okay, so as soon as you get a letter from a debt collections agency, you've already won. Yeah,
Right.
because that debt collections agency has bought your debt for you. So one way you can handle it is to say, thank you for paying off my debt. It's very nice of you, but you should have asked me first if you expected me to pay you. I'm not going to, by the way. Goodbye. There's nothing they can do. They're just hoping that they can scare you enough into paying the full amount. So yeah, once they sent that collections letter, I knew I'd already won. It was gone.
Nice. Yeah. I had spoke about that the other night actually, and that was because I was listening to something on one of your videos. See, I learned so much from you. I do. Yeah, man. I was talking to Vegan Warrior about that. I'm like, yeah, because isn't it the debt collection agency? They like kind of bought your debt, and they're just kind of sending you the option to pay them, basically. But it just seems like really official. So,
yes. Well, they're just a third party interloper into your business affairs. They've got nothing to do with you. They've got nothing to do with the bank. Yeah, they've just come along to the bank and said, there's this $100 debt here. Look, what if I buy that debt for $10? And the bank goes, because the bank hasn't given you anything anyway, right? And it's already written off the debt. It says, okay, yeah, I'll take $10. It's $10 up now, yeah. So the debt collections agency come after you and say, give me, you owe us $100. No, actually, you owe us $120 for our fees as well, because they're greedy bastards as well.
Right.
So all they're trying to do is scare you into dealing with somebody you don't know, who are just turning up on your doorstep and saying, you owe us money. It's like me turning up on your doorstep and saying, oh, you owe me 50 quid. You owe me $50. Pay up. It's like, who are you?
Who are you? Right.
Exactly. And that's all you say. Who are you? Do we have a contract? Is there anything between us? Have you got, are you in a contract with the bank? Show me the contract. Show me the agency agreement between you and the bank. Show me the contract between me and you. They haven't got any of that. So one of the tricks they'll use is to say something like, oh, just pay us $1 a month. That's all. Just pay us $1 a month. That's all you need to pay us. And some people fall for it. Right? As soon as you pay them anything, now you've verbally agreed that you owe them something. Now they can come after you for the full amount. And they do.
Okay.
They don't have any power until you give it to them.
Wow. All right. Remember that, folks. This is it. Dropping jewels here. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we came for. That's what we came for. This is good stuff. Because a lot of people don't even consider these things. And I mean, I myself, I had no idea about any of this stuff. I would have let so much of that crap go to freaking collection agencies. Oh, by the way, and that's happened to me actually. There was a couple things that actually I did lose sight of, and they did go over the collections, and I ended up paying it all off. So,
Well, we bumble in this life, bumble through this life because, we're not told about how it works. We're kind of expected to try and figure it out by ourselves.
right,
Most of us, you know, we want to start driving, so we kind of look around and go, oh, everyone's got a driving license. I think we better I better get a driving license. So you get a driving license, and what you don't realize is that you've given away your natural right to travel for a benefit privilege that you've actually signed up for.
right,
Yeah. So
right,
you have a natural right to travel in any way you see fit. Yeah. If you wanted to build an aircraft and fly it around, right, you have the right to do that. If you wanted to build your own car, yeah, and just travel around in that, yeah, you have the right to do that any manner you see fit, because the public roads are just that. They were built by and for the public, us. Yeah. Now the government, its only mandate is to regulate business, commerce. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Regulate the use of our public roads for commerce. That's the only way it can regulate anything on the roads. Yeah, because they're our roads.
Right.
So how it works is you are a child of the Most High. Yeah, there's nothing in between you and the Most High. Yeah, so it goes the Most High, you, and then anything that we create comes under you. So government is something that we collectively have created. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So government is under us. Yeah. The government creates fictional entities under it. Yeah. So these fictional entities are like driver, taxpayer, resident, occupier, all these fictional titles. Yeah. Mr. Mrs. All these titles. Yeah. So if the government can get you to identify, and that means in legal terms to make the same as, you identify as one of these fictional entities, well, you go from being a child of the creator down to something under government. You've given away your status of being above the government to being something below the government. You've now identified yourself as a driver. So now drivers have all sorts of duties and penalties and fees that go along with it.
True.
But a driver isn't. You're not a driver unless you're being paid to be on the road. If you're employed to transport goods or passengers for profit, then you're not a driver. If you get in your van and you drive if you travel from where you are now to the shops, yeah, you're not driving, you're traveling. Right? Driving is a commercial activity.
Exactly.
It's just like the old cowboys used to drive cattle. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were paid to drive cattle from one place to another. Yeah. So that term is a commercial term. The word traffic. Do you know what the word traffic means?
No. I was going to ask you to go into some of the word magic and all that too. So yeah. Go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, the word traffic, we think it means lots and lots of cars, but it doesn't. It means buying and selling. Drug trafficking. Child trafficking. Yeah.
Right. Human
buying
trafficking.
And selling. Yes.
Right.
We have a statute, an act in our country called the Road Traffic Act. So if you translate it into legalese, it's the Road Commerce Act. If you're not acting in commerce, it has no effect on you. Yeah, that's the legislation for what happened. What your duties are on the road. Yeah, if you're not in commerce, it has no effect on you.
Right.
All those fees and duties don't apply to you because you're not a driver. But they've tricked us into admitting that we're drivers, right? And one of those tricks is when you sign the driver's license.
Hmm.
You know, we think the driving license is a certificate of competency, that you're competent enough to drive or operate a car. Yeah.
Yeah.
When was the last time you signed a certificate? When somebody is judging you whether you're good enough to do something, don't they sign to say that you're good enough? Oh, that's my phone. Sorry.
Yeah. 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 And you know what? That I was thinking about that a little while ago because uh, a requirement for my job, they just had me go through training to get a commercial driver's license, so I can now drive school buses if I need interstate. But I got to thinking about what's the difference between a driver's license and a commercial driver's license is whether or not I'm driving to make money, but whereas a regular driver with a regular license is not. So, more.
Well, yeah, when you're working in your commercial capacity, if you're driving a school bus, well,
Yeah,
then you're essentially you are a driver. But when you're on the road with a so-called normal license,
right.
when you sign that thing, well, it's a contract because you're signing it. It's a contract, and
Dang it.
you're agreeing to waive your natural right to travel for the benefit privilege of being a driver. And when a cop stops you and says, "I want to see your license," yeah,
Mhm.
it is that cop is identifying you, making sure that you're telling him you're a driver, right? And as soon as you've admitted that you're a driver, now all these rules apply, right?
Yeah.
The only trouble now is that because there are so many muggles out there who have no idea, that this exists, no idea that this whole thing's a scam.
Right.
So public opinion is on the side of the police.
Yes.
So when you start questioning them and say, well, what evidence do you have that I'm actually driving right now? You know, and they start pulling you through the glass and tasing you, and well, the public opinion will say, well, he deserved it. He didn't show his license,
Yeah.
because they're ignorant. So the police are kind of emboldened to do whatever they want. So
Right.
that's why it makes it dangerous nowadays.
And um that's the part that sucks about this whole system. It's like a huge game, but most people don't even know if they're playing. So we end up kind of getting played by the system, and we're wondering what's going on. It's like, man, that's all messed up. Okay, here circling back to the financial aspect. There was a question. Um, as far as the payments getting sent over to collection agencies, somebody asked, does that work with student loans?
Now, student loans is a tricky one because that is the next mortgage. Okay, the mortgage was designed to put people in debt, for the whole of their lives. Okay,
Mhm.
it's called mortgage means death grip.
Yes,
So
I do know that one.
yeah.
Those
So it was designed to be that thing, that millstone around your neck for the rest of your life, keep you indebted. Yeah.
yes.
Well, student loans, since they're going away from people having mortgages, they're going to mop up the last of the mortgages in this next bubble that's coming up. So the student loan is the next one, the next millstone around everyone's neck.
Hmm.
So they put some things in place, but I'm not sure because I've been out of the Freeman thing for a while. But I think a few people should start looking at their contracts, yeah, and actually just reading through it, get Black's Law Dictionary, and start deciphering, what that contract actually says, because this is the deception behind all these contracts and things.
Hmm.
The language that's being used, even though it looks like English, it's not. Okay, it's in another language, a whole nother language called legalese. Okay, it looks like English and it reads like English, but all the words have been redefined. so that you think it means one way, but it actually means something completely different. So literally, you're going to have to sit there with a couple of editions of Black's Law Dictionary and decipher that contract, word by word in some cases, every word, look it up, see what else it means, and then just rewrite it and decipher it, because in it there has to be not a get out. It's not a get out as such, but you have to consent to it, right? You always have to consent to everything, because they can't ever make you do anything. They can force you to do. They can force you by making it inconvenient for you, right, to do anything else. But they can't force you to do something. You have to literally consent to it yourself. So in that document, in that contract, you'll find something that where you have to consent to it, and you'll be able to find the answer to it by, I've not done this. At the end of the day, it's still just a fraudulent loan. For any contract to be enforceable, you have to have four things. And the only way I remember how to remember the four things is one of those what's the word? I can't remember, when you get the first letters of everything.
Yeah, acronym, I believe.
Acronym, yes.
Mnemonic.
Acronym. Yeah. The acronym is phlegm.
Okay.
The first one is full disclosure. Okay, so any contract, every detail of that contract has to be in that document. Every detail. If it's not there, then it's not full disclosure. Yeah. Lawful terms and conditions. Yeah, they have to be lawful terms and conditions, right? I guess that's open to interpretation, but they have to be lawful. Okay. Equal consideration. That means for both sides of the contract, something of equal value has to be given over. That's rarely the case. Yeah. And then manifestation of intent. That usually means two signatures, your signature and the other party's signature. Most times there's only your signature there. Sometimes they're a bit tricky, and what they do is on some contracts they'll put an X, right, and say, right, this is where you sign, this is the X, but that's their signature. Yeah, that's their mark.
Oh man, see, that's okay.
But if any one of those things don't exist, right, then it's not an enforceable contract. So there are many avenues to approach this. I haven't looked at it myself, student loans, because I guess they were really just starting to, come in into England when I came over. So I was on my way out of the free man movement by that time. So yeah, I don't know, I'm afraid.
All right. Other aspects of breaking away from the matrix. What can you tell us? I understand you're somewhat off grid in recreational vehicle. Is it?
Yep. We're both in one. Look, right behind there is my bed.
Nice.
So yes, it's I'm kind of off grid. Now it's a tough process, because most of us have got a lot of so-called responsibilities. The easiest way really is to start removing the irrelevancies out of your life. Once you become aware of the truth, like what the television is doing to you, you can get rid of that thing, and you don't need all those channels and all this satellite and all this stuff anymore. You realize what the food's doing to you. Then you don't need all these processed foods that cost all this cash. You just start getting fruit and clean vegetables and stuff. As soon as you start going through your life and just moving all the irrelevancies, right, then you start reducing your dependence on their money. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you also start to realize that the world works very differently to the way you think it does. Yeah. Um, you don't need money to do what it is you need to do in this world. Yes, if you want to do the things, that the system promotes, yeah, then obviously you need their money to do things in their system.
Right.
But if you wanted to do something with your life, if you wanted to help people in some way, if you wanted to start making certain things, or doing something that is going to benefit the world, yeah,
Yeah.
all you need to do is get a passion for it and start moving towards it. Yeah. And what life will do, what the Most High will do, is literally start sweeping you along with like a current, and it will start moving obstacles out of your way, and
Right.
before long you're actually doing it, and and you haven't used any money. It's like, how did I manage to do this?
Yeah.
An example that most people do, or not, they maybe not actually do, but they might even think about, is when you're a young family, you get together and you decide, should we have children? Now, if you go the system way, and you get a piece of paper and you start noting down how much it's going to cost you to have that baby,
Hmm.
right? You won't have that baby because it's impossible. The amounts of money that it's going to cost you to have that baby is like, no, there's no way you can do it.
Right. Right. Right.
But then you want to have a baby, so you do it. And
Hmm.
somehow all those obstacles that you wrote down disappear and you manage to do it. Yeah, that's literally how it works with everything. And how I liken it is, well, you've got to realize that you're not separate from everything else around you. Yeah. Imagine yourself as a cell in your skin here, right? A skin cell.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one day you might, as a cell, go, oh, I need salt. I really need salt. I'm like, I need salt. Where's the salt? I can't find salt. Yeah. And eventually that's kind of those cries, those cries for salt eventually percolate up to you, and you go, I fancy some anchovies.
Right.
So you start eating anchovies, and the cell goes, oh wow, where did all this salt come from? Wow, I was just asking for salt and it just came. How did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just saying, you're not separate from this world. You're an integral part of it. Part of the flat earth is trying to tell you that you're not this tiny separate little microbe on a a speck of dust flying for an infinite universe.
Hmm.
Yeah, you are part and parcel of this world. Yeah, you are an integral part of this world. If you weren't here, the world would not be the same.
Right. Right.
Right. So yes, things are going to they're going to work in your favor, as long as you know that you're playing the game. If you don't know you're playing this game, then the game plays you, and you get swept along by circumstances and not understand why things are happening. But you can at any time take a conscious steps to go in a particular direction.
Mhm.
And one day you'll turn around and go, oh, I'm here. Oh wow, how did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And yeah, I've seen that happen a few times in my life when I would focus on something, and I've seen that happen to a lot of other people, and that's pretty cool.
Well, I have a story if you want to hear a story from my sister, actually.
Yes, please.
Okay. Some people might have heard this before. My sister picked up a magazine and opened up to the middle, and there was a picture of Hong Kong Harbour, with all the lights on at night. Yeah. And she just kind of fell in love with this picture. She was like, wow, I wish I could go and see that, but I'm a single mum, I don't have any money, and so she just cut the picture out, put it on the wall, and every so often she'd go past and go, you know.
Yeah.
And about a year later, she had this business idea, and she got onto one of those television programs where, you know, they it's called Dragon's Den, and, you know, these people, investors, decide where they want to invest in her idea.
Right.
Well, they didn't have any interest in her idea, but a big company in the UK basically phoned her up a few weeks later and said, "Oh, we loved your idea. Can you make 100,000 of them?" And she was like, "Oh, yeah, I can."
Right.
Put the phone down, and she was like, "How am I going to make 100,000 of them?" And one of her friends said, "Phone a company in China. That's what they do." So she phoned this company, and this company said, "Oh yeah, okay, we'll fly you out. You know, you bring all your stuff, and you know, we'll have this meeting, and we'll see if we can manufacture it for you."
Hmm.
So they flew her out, and she brought her stuff, and, you know, had this big meeting, and they said, "Yes, we can manufacture this."
Right.
So she was she left their building and was walking back to the hotel, and stopped exactly where the picture was taken, and she was like, "How did I get here?"
Oh wow. Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the business idea failed and that, but it wasn't about the business idea. It was about getting her to where she wanted to be.
Yeah. Huh. Man. Yeah. So it's just a matter of you know, trying to tap into that and having our intentions set on certain outcomes, and then just kind of watch circumstances fall into place that lead us down the road to getting that outcome.
But
So
not from here. Not from here, from here.
right. And that
Because
was another big thing. That was a huge part of it, and you would have to feel it. You would have to feel yourself standing in that position, seeing those lights across the harbor and all that. You would have to feel yourself in that position, and that's what kind of draws it to you a little bit quicker. So
yeah,
yeah,
because we're in this realm, this sandbox where anything is possible. Literally anything is possible. If you wanted to do whatever it is you want to do, it's possible. There's a probability of you being able to do that, and it's everything is within that probability. Yeah. So it's like the only thing that's limiting you is this. You know, what you've been programmed, what you think, what you believe about this world, and what you believe about you.
yeah. All right. So, okay. So along the lines of the off-grid situation, I have one solar panel. I have a couple marine batteries in the back. I saw a video when you put together the Bedini Energizer. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, it's actually a really cool little device. It's not really sexy as far as free energy devices go, but essentially what it does is it charges batteries. You can hang on. Let's see if just give me 1 second.
All right, no problem.
Give me 1 second. Hang on.
Get in the chat and say what's up to some folks. All day getting this thing over here. Loving the visuals. Hope everybody's having a great time.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Right. So I had a huge battery bank of six deep cycle batteries, and I was charging them all up with this little battery here.
Right.
Yeah. So my Bedini would take this little battery. It's only a 5 amp hour, you know, lead acid battery, and it would run this very, very simple circuit. Very simple. You can go online and download the circuit diagram. It's only essentially the basic model is one transistor, a couple of diodes, and, you know, a couple of little components, and a coil that you wind yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
And literally, this one battery can charge up a whole bank of car batteries. It's really quite amazing. And it came out of. Do you remember from in the 1980s? There were a whole load of these like executive toys that would, you know, they would just sit on a table and they'd swing, or they would spin
like
around.
The little balls that would clink clink. I remember those.
Yeah. Or there were some things that they'd be moving and they just seem to go by themselves forever and ever and ever. Yeah.
Like perpetual motion
It would
generators, as
seem
it.
like that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what they noticed about those things is I'll give you an example. One of them was like a spinning top, and it would just spin and then go near the center and then start spinning faster and going off, and it'll always be spinning, right? So what would happen is that spinning top has a couple of magnets in it, and when it and the base it's in is kind of angled towards the middle slightly, so the top would always end up going to the middle, and under the middle is a coil, and when the magnet comes near the coil, it induces a current in the coil, and that current is it goes into this circuit, and as the top or the magnet goes away from the coil, there's this effect called back EMF, okay, which is like a spike of energy that goes backwards through the circuit, and that spike of energy is many times the energy that was in the original circuit. So if the circuit's got 1.5 volts, you might get a spike of 50 volts go backwards through that circuit, and that back EMF will go through the coil and give the magnet a kick, so it would spin faster and then move away from the center, and then it will come back again and do the same thing. But what they noticed was that the little battery that was powering this thing would last for months and months and months, way more than it should have.
Right.
And what they realized was this back EMF that was kicking the magnet away was actually kicking a bit of energy back into the battery and charging it up.
Cool.
So John Bedini, basically modified the circuit to do that exact thing with with car batteries. So as I said, this little battery would power the circuit, and it would. So you got this wheel, basically. Imagine this big wheel, with magnets on around it, and a coil at the bottom. And you start the motor by spinning the wheel. A magnet will go past the coil, induce a current. That will energize the circuit. As the magnet moves away, slightly moves away, then the back EMF will jump through the circuit and then give that magnet a kick.
Oh man!
So then the wheel will move along. Then the next magnet will come along and do the same thing. So the wheel starts accelerating. Okay, and every time it gives it that kick, you literally shunt that spike of energy, which in this case from a 12-volt battery, you get something like a 300-volt kick. Okay, so that 300 volts, a spike, goes into the charging batteries, and the batteries charge up. And literally, it takes very, very little energy from this battery to keep that wheel spinning. And the more you actually put a load on that wheel, the less energy it takes from the battery. It's really cool. So literally, you can actually even use that spinning rotation to do something like run a fan or a motor of some kind. Yeah. And it will, by using it, you're making it last longer, and you're charging batteries at the same time.
Right.
So I actually made a motionless version. So I found a little effect. I wasn't the first to find it. Somebody else found it as well, a Russian guy, and it was I accidentally changed the value of one of the components, and the wheel wouldn't go around anymore. And I was using a tiny wheel, which was the platter of a hard disk. I sort of broke a hard disk open, and it's got like a little metal platter, and I stuck some magnets on it. Okay,
I saw that.
All right. Okay, so literally, I changed one of the components, and the wheel wouldn't go around. But instead, that wheel was making this really kind of high-pitched whining sound. I was thinking, why won't it work? Why won't it work? And I looked at the output, and it was charging batteries. I was like, oh, hang on, it's actually working, but the wheel's not going around.
Right.
So I've modified. I've got a modified out. It's underneath a whole load of stuff now. But I've got a modified version where I've just got is the coils, no wheel, and I start it by slapping a magnet on top of one of the coils, and literally as soon as I slap a magnet on there, it starts producing power. And so I had the thing charging my batteries in this van for about 3 months until I blew it up.
Right, and there was another situation. I believe you had put it on Facebook. You said there was it was like one of the batteries was punctured one way or another, and you were wondering why you were feeling sick. What was this? Can you tell us about that situation?
Okay, well that wasn't anything to do with the Bodini or anything. It was
Right.
literally my I think my battery charger wasn't working very well. The battery charger that charges the main leisure battery in this place. It's actually, the battery was situated right where I'm sitting now, right underneath me in a box.
Right.
And so yeah, for a good couple of weeks, I found myself getting kind of sicker and sicker, and I sort of hit the urine therapy, and I'd feel better, but the next day I'd feel sicker again. I was thinking, what's going on? And what I didn't realize was that the battery right under me here was boiling, and it was off gassing all this sulfuric acid, and I was breathing that stuff in. So yeah, I think I was kind of lucky, because I think after about a week or so, the battery exploded. And I was in bed just above here. Okay, literally in bed. The battery exploded. I mean, a seriously loud explosion, which they heard from about quarter of a mile away.
Yeah.
So and the whole van filled up with sulfuric acid fumes, and I was actually in bed, and I started breathing. I was like, I couldn't breathe, and it took me a few minutes to get out of the van. And by the time I got out, I'd already inhaled a few lungfuls of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I got out of the van, and I still couldn't breathe, and I kind of passed out. Well, actually, just before I passed out, I was lying on the grass trying to get up, and I looked over and I saw these 3 women walking their dogs, and they saw me.
Yeah.
They saw me lying on the floor, kind of struggling and everything, and they walked past. So, is it today? Is it today that I leave?
Right. Man.
But I came to, and I still wasn't feeling too good, so I wrote a message on Facebook just saying, what happened, just so if anything did happen, people would know what's going on. And somebody actually, my sister ended up getting an ambulance to me. But by the time the ambulance got there, I was already sort of recovering. Okay. So yeah, but it was a bit of touch and go though, because there was nobody around. The phone numbers I had, I phoned a couple of people who were around about, and they weren't around, and it was like, oh dear.
Right. Well, I'm glad that situation worked itself out, man. Jeez. Ooh. All right. On to history. You're a bit of a history buff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I never was really. I used to hate history because, and I know why now, because it never ever made sense.
Right.
Never ever made sense. Why, these civil wars? Why was there a civil war? They couldn't ever give me a good reason why there was these civil wars, and why the 100 Years' War went on, and what was the point? And now it makes sense. Now when you realize it's a race war, now it makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, that's the only reason I'm into this history now.
All right. Here, before we get started on this one, and this might ruffle some feathers. Can you give somewhat of a summary? It was like on the video, why Great Britain is no longer great or British. You gave a breakdown as to how racism is like another social construct. Can you give that disclaimer?
Right. Well, yeah. The idea of race is a kind of new construction. Really, it was made in the 1700s by somebody called Johann Blumenbach. Okay, it's just this idea of classifying people in so-called races. This is nothing to do with race. This is to do with nation and bloodline. Yeah. After the flood, the Great Flood, there were only three nations of people, the sons of Noah, and everyone stemmed from these three, black guys. Okay, um, but there was also somewhat of a corruption of the DNA, and that came from before the flood with the fallen angels who kind of mated with human women and produced these Nephilim. These not only giants, there were giants. They became, the first generation was like 450 foot tall. But there are other types of Nephilim, and the Book of Enoch just kind of, I think it's Book of Enoch and Jasher, just basically touch on these other types of Nephilim. So yeah, the human DNA was corrupted, and so you have these classifications. Well, not classifications; they're still nations. But what this race thing did is it just muddied the waters, because there are nations that look the same, but they're not the same.
Right.
So, you and me belong to a nation, even though we're from different countries. We're from the same nation of Hebrews. Okay, from the progenitor Shem. Now, in Africa, right, especially North and Eastern Africa, there are Hamites, those children of Ham. So they might look superficially like us, but they're not the same nation. They have different skull shape, different physiology, or not physiology, more like a skeletal shape. Yeah. And a couple of other features, like, for instance, the real native Africans, the men cannot grow beards. That was one of the I can't remember where I saw that in the scriptures, but there was something could have been in one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but there was something that said, well, I knew he wasn't an Israelite because he didn't have a beard, and he couldn't grow a beard. Native African women cannot grow afros like our women can. So yeah, there are some actual differences. So the point is that you cannot just look at somebody and know what nation they are. Okay, because of the way the Great Britain was colonized by essentially Germans. There are a lot of so-called white people who are actually Israelites, because it only takes 3 generations to get rid of the color. So, but if your father or your father's seed line goes back to an Israelite, then you're an Israelite. If it goes back to a Germanic, then you're an Edomite. Yeah. So you can't just look at somebody and know who they are. And it's not our job to judge. It's not our place to judge anybody. And so you never see me, pick on somebody because they're white, or anything like that, because it's not my place to judge. It's the Most High's. And you better believe it, right now he's judging. He's doing some serious judging right now.
Right. There's a lot going on right now, and
it certainly is.
Yeah, and it fits right in with prophecy, just the same. So quick breakdown for everybody as far as Hebrew Israelites, the journey of the Israelites from start to finish. If you could do that, wrap that up in a neat little package.
Okay. Well, I've already mentioned about the infiltration of the fallen angel seed before the flood. Kind of got past the flood, because of the wives of Noah's 3 sons.
Mm-hmm.
A week before, I think this was in Jasher, a week before the flood, Noah had to find wives for his sons, and all the women were corrupted. That's what the book says. They were all corrupted. So the fallen angel DNA made it past the flood through the wives of the his 3 sons. So in Ham's lineage, there were giants, lots of giants. So Ham's line was corrupted. In Japheth's lineage, there was at least 1 giant. Okay, but there were none in Shem's. So that's why Shem's was a chosen line, because his line was the human line. Okay, so this seed didn't express itself until Esau. So Esau and Jacob were twins, born to Rebekah and Isaac. Everything that's going on in the world today is the war between Esau and Jacob.
Right.
Okay. So you and I are the sons of Jacob, and there are others out there who are the sons of Esau. And we've been in a battle for thousands of years, and most of us don't know we're in a battle right now. Okay. So in Psalm 83, an idea was hit upon, because the enemy of the Israelites, the Edomites, they know that when the Most High is with us, we are unbeatable. Okay, you just have to look at the book of Joshua, beating all the giants in the land, or the book of Maccabees, the first Maccabees, which is in the Apocrypha. Literally, we're unbeatable. In Maccabees, you had 300 or 400 men put 10,000 Greeks to flight. Yeah, so they know that when the Most High is with us, because according to the book, we're His chosen people. We're the ones who entered into a covenant with the Most High to be His people, and as long as we keep His covenant, then we're in His good graces. But we started to disobey, and we kept disobeying, and we kept getting into the Most High would turn His back on us, and we go into slavery. So the enemy knew that if they could keep us in sinning, so that the Most High keeps His back turned on us, we would be in slavery in perpetuity.
Right.
Yeah. So in Psalms 83, it says something like, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, so that the name of Israel be no more in remembering." The idea was to make us lose our memory. And if anybody wants to doubt that we are the people, well, there's only one group of people on this earth who are scattered throughout this earth. Yeah. They have no homeland. They have no memory or history. Yeah, they have no language of their own. Yeah, we just speak everybody else's language. They have no heritage to point back to. All their whole history starts with slavery in the 1600s.
Yeah.
There's only one people who have no memory. Right, and that's what happened. That's what Psalm 83 is telling us. This is what happened. The whole group of nations got together, and they basically took our memory from us. Yeah. So the book also says that in the last days, and we are absolutely in the last days, that we would start to remember ourselves in the lands of our captivity, and that's exactly what's going on. This is what this conversation is about. Yeah. It's us remembering who we are, and it's amazing. There's this awakening going on. I used to pass out a little flyer, a little booklet that I printed up that just summarizes my video, "The Black Man, Do You Know Who You Are?" And I would give it out to people as I see them on the street.
Yeah, you gave me that one.
Okay. So yeah, I'd be passing them out, and I'd get people who would say, yes, we were just thinking about this. We were just talking about this the other day. Just, and it's getting more and more people already know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So the awakening is real. And I think the flat earth actually plays into it. The flat earth is one of those things that was there to wake people up, to make them realize that this world isn't what you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And many people have just suddenly got into the flat earth and now are starting to go, look around and go, hang on, if they're lying to us about that, what else are they lying to us about?
Yes, that is exactly why I do what I do, as far as just driving around, red pilling people, not even paying attention. They're like sitting next to me in the traffic. They're like, Earth surface.
And going,
they're like, yeah, I'm getting flipped off. Some people will like honk the horn. They're like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, I know, right? So yeah, and that's exactly what I say. If they'll lie to us about where we are, they'll lie to us about everything else. As far as history, as far all of it. So yeah, go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. This is the biggest thing. I mean, I titled my first video, my first flat Earth video, "The Biggest Lie of All."
Mm-hmm.
But near the end of, I think just after I put it out, I realized actually there's an even bigger lie under this, and that lie is who we are. Yeah. And not just who we are, it's who everybody is.
Right.
Because they've erased all the knowledge of who everyone is. And until you know who the people are in that book, in the Old Testament, you can't make sense of it. It doesn't make sense. It's just this babbling book. And again, it's really, really clever, because the book itself, the Old Testament, it was written not for the time that it was written in. Yeah, it was written for this time. It was called the Book of Remembrance because forget who they are and they need reminding. It's for, and actually says in the it is not for a book for this, but for those in days. And what happens? The Book of Enoch disappears and reappears in 1947.
Yeah. What's that
time.
About? Somebody trying to hide something?
Well, that's the point. It was meant. It's not meant for all, those ages away. It's meant for now. For this generation. And how lucky are we to be in that generation where all those people in those, thousands of years ago were looking, going, wow, that's going to be a great time. That's going to be an amazing time, And here we are, we're living it. It's like absolutely exciting.
And for some reason or another, I always felt like I was going to be around when all this stuff happened. I was like, I'd be sitting there like reading, or I'm in church listening to all this stuff that's going to happen. I'm like, dude, I just know I'm going to be around for this crap, and I don't know, man. It's kind of weird. Exciting.
Sorry.
Exciting times, though.
Yeah, this is why I'm really excited. I get really excited about discovering stuff. Yeah, it's just like it's almost like a drug sometimes. It's like wow,
Right.
And to find out that the whole book of Book of Remembrance is about this main event. The various bondage and cruel affliction. The last punishment of the Israelites.
Yeah.
400 years in hard bondage. Yeah, and that was written in Genesis, the very first book, telling about what's going to happen in the end days, that the Israelites were going to go into slavery and affliction for 400 years, right? And then to find out that the beginning of that 400 years of slavery was in 1619. Yeah, it was actually August 21st, 1619, when the first slave touched down in America. So the clock started then. So that 400 years expires next year, August 21st next year.
Dun.
Yes. And I started seeing some amazing parallels. Yeah, some amazing pointers to say, well, yes, this is happening, this is going on. Like, you know, the Most High says that there's, you know, it uses the sun, moon, and stars as signs and seasons. Yeah,
Yeah.
for signs and seasons, weeks and years.
Yep.
And yeah, one of the biggest signs is an eclipse. So America got an eclipse last year, a very significant one. Yeah, it went through 7 places called Salem or Jerusalem.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, way against the odds. Okay.
Yeah.
And it went through all the major earthquake zones, and it peaks. The time that it stayed the longest was over the New Madrid fault line, in the most active earthquake zone in America, and it's kind of tied to the Yellowstone fault line. Okay.
Oh crap.
And Yellowstone is a super volcano.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So there's also another eclipse scheduled 7 years on from that first one. Now 7 is always the number of completion in the Bible. So, yeah. So 7 years on from that first eclipse is another eclipse, 2024, that goes the other way across America. Yeah.
Now, how am I going to explain the movement of the shadow going back that way? I don't know how I'm going to work that out.
I don't know.
if I'm even going to be doing flat Earth videos at that point, I don't even know, man.
I think they were going to, you know, they thought, well, we'll try and explain that when it comes to it. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. You know?
Yeah, we bent over backwards trying to convince them it went this way when it.
Right. Because I even did the thing. I was like, I had the light source, and then I had a little quarter attached to a stick or a pencil, and then I was able to cause the shadow to go from west coast to east. But I'm like, how am I going to do it the other way? It's like the sun's moving faster. Man,
we'll deal with that in 2024.
Right. Probably worry about other stuff by then. Shoot.
Yeah, you know, they're going to have to work, because the thing is, where that other eclipse crosses the first is over the New Madrid fault line.
Right.
So it's like, you know, X marks the spot, and this is where I think America is going to be utterly destroyed. In or around, you know, obviously I don't like making prophecies, but you know, I can't avoid this one because it seems too clear cut to me that you know, this is gonna happen over the New Madrid fault line. It's gonna be an earthquake, gonna trigger the super volcano, and we're seeing. I don't know if you just go on YouTube and type in Yellowstone supervolcano, and you'll see news reports saying that this super volcano, is starting to you know, wake up. You know, Yellowstone has been closed because apparently the surface is actually moving up and down by about 6 feet, and it's you know, like it's breathing, so it's waking up and becoming active again. So I think, you know, somewhere in or around 2024, there'll be a massive earthquake in the New Madrid fault line, going to trigger the super volcano, and when that goes, it's they reckon 2/3 of America will become uninhabitable immediately.
Okay, so good idea. Good idea to figure out what I need to do to get out of here.
You don't need to figure out what to do.
All right.
All you need to do is get right with the Most High, okay, and you'll know what to do when the time comes. Because in between, you know, now and you know, 2024, all sorts of weird things are going to happen. They're already happening, you know. Did you hear that Ghana apologized for slavery, its part in slavery?
Yes.
And also offered to give land to anybody from the diaspora who wants to come back.
Oh,
yes, you can go and say, yes, I want to come back, and they'll give you some land.
So what's the currency exchange rate over there?
And there's also the African Union ambassador, Arikana Chirumbo. I can't remember pronounce her name, but if you find her speech, it's a very inspiring speech, and it's basically Africa saying, "Look, you guys in the diaspora, yeah, you might not know it because you're kind of undervalued in this country, in the countries that you're in, but you have skills that we need, you know, that we can actually rise up because of your skills."
Hmm.
And that's true because, you know, we all have among us are doctors, you know, don't want to talk about doctors, but you know, we engineers, electronic engineers. We have skills, even though we're not really valued in this country, in our countries.
Hmm.
Yeah, those skills are very, very valuable to to Africa. So
Okay.
they're, you know, starting to kick out the colonizers. You know, South Africa is, you know, taking back the land, but all the other countries are looking at what is happening in Africa and waiting and watching. And I think Namibia is starting to do exactly the same. So Africa is starting to, you know, get back on its feet after all this colonialism. Even though China is trying to get in there and and you know, recolonize it, but
Right.
I don't think they're going to be successful, to my mind. But there you go. But what I'm saying is, you know, things are happening. You know, biblical prophecy is coming to pass. So, as far as I can tell, we're going to go to Africa as a staging point before going back into our land. And that's all going to have to happen before 2024. But while we're in Africa, there's going to be a purging process because it's the book says, you know, the Most High is going to purge the rebels among us, and those rebels, to my mind, are those who are still holding on to an idol, still holding on to this Jesus character. You know, I know that's not going to be very popular because you know, there's a lot of us who are still clinging on to now the black Jesus or the black Yahweh Shai or Yahushua or whatever they want to call him.
Right.
But it seems very, very obvious to me that it was a creation to keep us breaking the first commandment unawares. You know.
Right. And I've heard your breakdown on that. And it made a lot of sense actually, because I mean, in the most basic sense, it's you know, the verses where it says, "You can only come to the Father through me." But then there's that one commandment that says, "Thou shalt have no other god before me."
Before me,
So
yeah.
it's so we gotta basically, yeah, you know, I mean, that's basically what that verse says. It's kind of a contradiction there. So, all right, that's all I
Well,
got. Go ahead.
one of the camps actually says, and the camps are, I've got to say, the camps are controlled opposition. It was set up, you know, before most people started awakening, just to capture, you know, the newly awakened and bring them into this new version of Christianity. But one of the things that these camps say is, how does it go? Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Yeah, that means, you know, Yahweh, the name of the Most High, in the name of Yahweh Shai or Jesus. Yeah. You still there? I've just got your picture.
Oh no, I'm still here.
Okay. I just got your picture here. So anyway, so yeah, it's Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. So you know, the Most High in the name of Jesus. So if you kind of break that down, I mean, I've got a passport and it says, Her Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires in the name of the Queen. Yeah. So who's the most important one in that sentence? Right? It's the Queen, because that's the person you're talking, you know, you're speaking in the name of. Yeah. So
Right.
you put that into the Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai speech, right? The last person there is the important one. So what you're saying there is that Jesus is the important one. The Most High isn't important, right? He's the less important one that you're speaking to in the name of the important one. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you're putting this idol, this character, you're placing that character on high and the Most High below him. That's what that phrase says. Yeah, I'm praying to the Most High in the name of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's word magic. You think you're doing the right thing because of that verse, word magic verse that says, the only way to get to the Father is through the Son, right? That sets up a program in your mind, so you think you're doing one thing, but you're actually doing something else. It's just like a hypnotist, saying a few words and making you think that an onion is an apple.
Right.
You bite into that onion and swear blind it's an apple. But what you're doing in reality is biting an onion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same thing. All right. Every time you start talking about this, you're putting him before the Most High, and it seems obvious to me. And then when you look into history, and you look into the Inquisition, you find out the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, was about us. It was literally trying to convert the Israelites who were stubbornly clinging onto the law, the Ten Commandments,
Mm-hmm.
converting them to Christianity. And if they wouldn't convert, which most of them didn't, they would torture them in the most horrible ways and then burn them to death. And not only burn them, first of all, they'd actually sort of tie them up to the stake so they were leaning forwards like this.
Right.
Sort of leaning forwards. And do you know why they did that? So all the men would be leaning forwards like that.
They could burn the beards.
They could burn the beards first.
Yep.
So literally, they'd burn their face, alive, and then burn them, the rest of them. Yeah. So the Israelites would prefer torture, horrible torture, and death before, being converted into this heathen religion. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing they hit upon when they realized that Hebrews were not being converted, and I think I mentioned this at my last video, that there was an event where the inquisitors were burning a whole family, and they pulled the daughter aside
Mm-hmm.
and made her watch her parents being tortured and burned. And then they spoke to the little girl and said, look, you've just seen your mother and father, tortured and murdered and burned, right? You don't have to do that. You don't have to go through that. All you need to do is convert. That's all you need to do. And the little girl seemed like she was listening, and then she just ran into the fire and burned to death.
Right.
Yeah, this is how much they despise this religion. This is how much they would not convert to it. Yeah. Look in Second Maccabees chapter 7 is all about a family, mother and 7 sons captured by the king of Greece, and being forced to the king of Greece was trying to force them to eat pork. Yeah.
Oh.
So took them out one by one, said eat this pork, and they refused. So he tortured them and killed them. Pulled out another one, eat the pork. They no, and killed them, tortured them, all that business. Next one, same thing. Next one, same thing. Then got the mother out and said, look, you've just seen 6 of your sons die. Yeah, you're going to go through the same thing. Eat the pork.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, no, I'm not eating the pork. And then the final son he brought out and said, okay, if you eat the pork, I'm going to give you wealth. I'm going to give you riches. I'm going to give you women, palaces, whatever. Just eat the pork. And he laughed. So he got tortured and burned. This is the level of zeal that we have for our Most High.
Right.
Our ancestors will be turning in their graves to see how much our people are still clinging on to this thing that they would die not to convert to. It's, you know, it's just stunning to me. And I mentioned this period of purging when we go into, and I believe it's when we go to Africa. It says the Most High will purge the rebels from among us. Okay. And only a remnant is going to remain. So most people aren't going to make it through the purge. Now there are something like 2.2 billion people who believe in this Christ God. Okay, 2.2 billion people. That doesn't sound like a remnant to me.
That sounds like nice handful of people. So here for those who would say that the Bible is a book of stories, fairy tales, myths, things like that, what evidence would you give to corroborate? I mean, is like as far as like things that people could go back and research for themselves, or things that they can look at to substantiate the legitimacy of the Bible, or the remembrance, that is.
Okay, well, this is again one of those moments of really excitement of discovering this stuff. Yeah. Well, I think it was in 1980, the Red Sea crossing was discovered. When you go to the Red Sea or the Gulf of Aqaba, this little gulf is about a mile deep everywhere except for one place, yeah, where there is a perfect land bridge across this gulf, yeah.
Right.
Everywhere else is a mile deep, and this land bridge is kind of gently sinks down to about maybe 900,000 feet and up again. Okay. And when this guy called Ron Wyatt took like one of those mini subs down there, and he was photographing what was down there, he found chariot wheels and horse and human skeletons, and chariot cabs and all sorts of things down there, indicating that the story of Pharaoh chasing the Israelites across the Red Sea actually happened. They found granite pillars either side of the site, which King Solomon erected. And again, I always forget the verse where he mentions these pillars. So yeah, there's granite pillars, and on one side the pillar had fallen over. On the other side, it was still up, and there was still writing in Paleo Hebrew that said Israelites, and and a few words to indicate this was the crossing. The name of the place is called Aba al Muzina, which means the waters of Moses opening. Okay, that particular spot. So yes, and when you go across the that crossing, the landmarks that are spoken of in the Bible, he found. There's a split rock, which is a rock that Moses, banged his staff on, and the rock split and water started gushing out of it. Well, this massive split rock is right there, with water damage below it. Yeah. So that's there. And when we followed the trail to the real Mount Sinai, he found evidence of where they set up the what's the name of the thing, where they set up the I can't remember what they call it, but yeah, there's a split rock. He got it. Yeah. So I mean, that's quite an impressive thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so they found that, and they found where the tabernacle. That's what I was trying to find. They found the evidence of the tabernacle and all the landmarks that were spoken of in the book. He also found let's step back from that. Here's some more actual physical evidence. There's a thing called the Ipuwer papyrus that is
Mhm.
in the Leiden Museum. I think that's in Holland. Okay, so Ipuwer papyrus, and it's an account by an ordinary Egyptian of what happened during the plagues and the flight of the Israelites. It describes the whole story from the perspective of an ordinary Egyptian.
Mhm.
So that's another piece of evidence. There's something called the famine stele from the island of Sahel, which literally documents the 7 years of plenty and then the 7 years of famine. Okay, so that corroborates the story. Ron Wyatt also found found Noah's Ark, literally in the foothills of Mount Ararat, exactly where it's supposed to be. Yeah, a big boat, exactly the same proportions as described in the Bible, and 70 miles from the nearest body of water. It's obviously a boat. Yeah, he took metal detectors and ground tomography devices and literally mapped out the ribs of this boat.
Mhm.
He wanted to excavate, but yeah, you found it. There you go. He wanted to excavate, and the Turkish government started to, and ah, and they sort of kept him hanging around. But then there was an earthquake in that region, and it excavated it for them. So he was able to find the petrified wood of the actual ark. So there it was. The ark was sitting there in a place called the Valley of the Eight. The 8 people that survived on the ark. So
Mhm.
he also found Sodom and Gomorrah. This barren wasteland where nothing grows, and
Mhm.
is pockmarked with all sorts of sort of little pockmarks. And when he broke open a stone with one of these pockmarks in it, he broke it open, and there was a perfect ball of sulfur in there. So this sulfur was burning when it came down. It was burning so hot it melted its way into a rock, and the rock liquefied and then closed over it and preserved the sulfur, which is something like 99% pure. And you can't find 99% pure sulfur anywhere on Earth.
Right.
So yes, what we're finding is all these biblical events, actually happened, and there's physical traces of those events actually happening. That was one of the first things that got me into realizing that this book was not just a book of fairy tales.
Right. And I mean that's important for a lot of people to understand or to get a grasp on, because a lot of people will look at these things, and I mean I'm the type that I'll have to look at something so many times, and then I'm like, okay, so what's the evidence to support this? Because coming into flat Earth, from that perspective, I mean we can't really take anything just for granted at this point. Like we're looking at everything with a skeptical eye. So when we go back and look at other things, such as the Bible, we're like, okay, so where's the evidence for this? So it is important that people have a better understanding as far as what can be substantiated, and that there is physical evidence out there to look at. So anybody wanting to get more info on these things, I can put some links in the description for a couple of days videos that have the videos that link back to this stuff. So
Well, one of the other things that people can look at is place names. Yeah, place names never go away. You can try and hide them and change them and stuff, but the original names they stick around.
right.
So you can go out and get you can find the Emmanuel Bowen map from 1747, I think it is. Yeah, Emmanuel Bowen, and it's a map of Africa. And just blow it up and start having a look at some of the place names, and you might get some surprises, like the Sahara Desert isn't the Sahara Desert. It's actually called the Kingdom of Zara, who is the second son of Judah, yeah, or the desert. That's what it's called. It's not Sahara Desert. It's the kingdom of Zara. Tells you who was there. Yeah.
Right.
There's a place called the Desert of Seth. You know, the Seth being I guess the third son of Adam. You can find, the kingdom of Judah. You can find Ashanti, which actually means in Paleo Hebrew, the people of Ashan, which was a place in Judah. Yeah, you can find Sudan, which is Sal Yuda. Yeah, it's I think it's another way of saying people of Judah. Yeah. Yes, you can just look round this map and figure out, there's a couple of other ancient maps as well with different information, but again, you just scroll around this map and you'll find some gems in there. It's just like quite amazing.
Yeah.
If you just dig into these names. So yeah, one of the things I was honing in on were place names and names of peoples, and because what would happen is the convention was to name a place after the people. Right. So I was looking at the genealogy chart of Judah, and I just happened to be reading the Iliad at the same time. Right. And I noticed that the names started to match up. Yeah, so there was I think the grandson of Zara was called Darda. And, the Iliad said there was somebody called Dardanus, who was the grandson or grandfather of somebody called Tros, who was the one who founded Troy. So the region of Troy, I sort of, drew a line from I guess, Jerusalem all the way over to where Troy was. And guess right in the middle, right almost in the middle of it, was a place called Dardanelles.
Well, now.
Yeah, so you can, again, you can follow where people go by where they leave their names. So yes, that's how I realized that the Trojans were actually Hebrew Israelites, and then that led into finding a Trojan prince who founded Great Britain. Okay, and so this Trojan prince called Brito founded Great Britain. It's great because history interlocks. It's just quite amazing. So yeah, it's a huge subject, and if I start talking about it, I'll jump around from all sorts of things. So I'm sorry if it doesn't seem to make sense.
No. I'm probably gonna have you on another couple times just to break some of this stuff down. I'm just like, all right, yeah, go on. Cool. But yeah, we're at about 2 hours. Okay, but before we wrap it up, what, in your opinion, is the most important thing for people to understand these days?
Right. Well, the most important thing for our people, and I'll go to everybody else as well, but for our people is to get right with the Most High. That's it. In Malachi, the last, supposedly the last book in the Old Testament, and the last words are, and I'm going to have to paraphrase because I can't remember it offhand, but it says something like, let us hear the conclusion of the matter.
Yes.
Our duty is to fear the Most High and keep his commandments.
That was Ecclesiastes. I remember that because I used to, I was on a team a long time ago with my church, the Bible Bowl team. And we used to memorize scriptures and quotes and, different words. So yeah, that was Ecclesiastes. That was I believe that was chapter 12. But yeah, that was one of my verses. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you got me because I was actually searching for that about 10 minutes ago. I said I was responding to a troll.
Yeah.
I looked for that and I thought it was in Malachi, and it came up and I just assumed it's still Malachi. Yes, 12:14, 12:13 and 12:14.
Yes, let us hear the conclusion of all things. fear the Most High and keep His commands, for that is the duty of all mankind. Something like that.
Yeah, it's let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, the Most High, and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
Yep.
That's it. So we know what the commandments are. We have to return to it. We have to return to Him. And now there are, those who aren't Israel. Now this is the thing, when we say that we're the chosen people, and we're going to go back into our land and stuff like that. It's not as rulers, not in this. You can't look at this wicked society and assume it's going to be a version of this wicked society, because we are not those people. Okay, our job is to be the ambassadors for the Most High. We're the priesthood of the Most High, and essentially, the other nations of the earth are going to come to us and say, how are we supposed to serve the Most High? Because now we know He's real. Now that we know He's real, how do we serve the Most High? And they're going to come to us about that. That's our job, right? It's not as iron-fisted rulers, yeah.
Right.
So our duty, and we're going to be punished more harshly than anyone else for transgressing. Yeah, He's going to be harsher with us if we don't come back to His laws. We keep following idols, then we're going to get punished as harshly as the wicked. But the wicked are going to get punished. They're being punished now. The plagues that we're seeing unfolding into the earth right now. Well, the wicked are going to succumb to those. The wicked amongst us are going to succumb to those. And in 2nd Ezra, chapter 7, it tells you what happens to the wicked. And essentially, they're going to kind of wander in torment until the final judgment. And those who aren't wicked, when they die, they're going to go into a place of profound silence and quiet and sleep, and guarded by angels. But before that, we're all going to get to see what's going to happen to the wicked, what's going to happen to the good, what's going to, there's 7 things, and 7 things that are bad and 7 things that are good.
Right.
I can't remember them all, but yes. It all comes down to your personal choice in this world. Yeah. We came here and we lost our memories. We didn't know who we are, who we were, what we were. Okay. We just arrived here with no memory in this place where anything is possible. And the Most High basically put us here and said, off you go. What are you going to do? It's a test. It's a contest. 2nd Ezra calls it a contest. I call it a game. It's like my son's video game where he used to play kind of Star Wars game, where he started off as this little kid with a lightsaber. Yeah, and through this game, he had to make choices. And depending on his choices, he either became a Dark Lord or a Jedi.
Oh, I remember that game.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, you make decisions, and you either ended up on the dark path or you became a Jedi. Yeah. This is where we are. Yeah, we've got free will in a place where anything can happen. Anything that we want to happen can happen. So it comes down to our choice. We all have the 10 commandments in us. It's right there, written right there in our hearts. Yeah, even the psychopaths, they have the 10 commandments right there, and when they do something wrong, they know they're doing something wrong. They just don't care.
Right. Right. We all kind of feel it.
We all feel it. We all know.
You get a vibe when you're about to do something wrong, and you make the decision.
Exactly.
Whether or not you're going to do it anyway. It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So we get the choice. You're in this situation. What are you going to do? You're going to deal with it wickedly. You're going to deal with it righteously. And if you're on that dark path, at any time, you can say, you know what, this is wrong. and you can jump across to the light side, right? That's called repenting. So all it means, turn away from evil and turn back to the laws of the Most High. But woe betide you if you go back. Once you repented and you go back and do something on the dark path, you're on the dark path for good. And you know what? It doesn't look good for you if you end up, at the end, when the scores are tallied up, you haven't got a high score. That's it. That's the game we're playing.
All right. Oh man. All right. You've given us a lot to think about. Indeed.
Well, I suggest you find, if you want to find out more about that bit, it's in Second Esdras, chapter 7, right? Verses 35 to 105.
That in the
now, one thing in the Apocrypha,
okay.
But what you might find is that your Apocrypha might not go up to 105, because I found that my King James with the Apocrypha, there were 70 verses missing. There were 70 verses missing. And, those 70 verses basically had the, well, I think it might be in that Apocrypha. But
right.
Wait a minute. My, another one.
Where are we at now?
Right, Second Esdras, chapter 7, verses 35 to 105.
7. Wait, you say chapter 7?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I got Second Esdras, and yeah, it stops at verse 70.
There you go. There's more verses, yeah.
Man.
So go and search for the 70 missing verses of Esdras, Second Esdras.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. Hey, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't rabbit on too much.
No, that was kind of the point. I was like, let me get Dave on here, because ain't nobody trying to hear what I got to say, man. But yeah, I appreciate it. You got a lot. You got a lot to share with everybody, and yeah, I'm sure everybody's gonna walk away having picked up on something. We had a lot of different topics here. Really appreciate it.
Okay, well, next time. More to come.
Cheers. Awesome. All right. I'd like to say a special thank you to Activate Your Light, AYL Norway channel, China Mrs. Jones, Jason Tomlinson, Seth Bob, and my man Joey Seal. Sure appreciate you all. Thanks everybody for showing up. This is D Marble and allegedly Dave out here. Thanking you for tuning in. Hope you have a great weekend. I'm off tomorrow, by the way, so I'll be getting a little rest. But yeah, any questions in the chat for like the last minute or so? I don't know. My man Ranty's in the house. What's up? I see you. Let me see. Yeah, go ahead and wrap this thing up. All right, folks. Much love to you. Thanks for tuning in for this edition. Just gonna call this Decoding the Matrix, because there's a lot that you put out there to break this thing down, sir. Sure appreciate it. Looking forward to meeting you at the Flat Earth Conference, by the way.
Yeah, me too, mate. Me too.
Yeah, this is gonna be good. It's gonna be fun. I just got my plane ticket a couple weeks ago, so yeah, I'm ready. Just got to make sure I got enough vacation time, so off of my slave job.
Off grid, it's the way to go, mate. Honestly.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm still, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. But all right. Yep. All right, folks. As always, be good to each other. Take care of yourself. Stay flat. See you next time. Thank you. And